agricultural engineering company. And we have been in the agricultural industry for the last 5 years. Prior to that, I was a management consultant, working on strategic projects for big corporations in Gulf, Turkey, and some European clients. So basically, in my presentation, I am going to cover 2 parts. The first part will be just a recap of what my colleagues from Turkey just explained to you, the side of it, Turkish agriculture and the potential of Turkish agriculture, and some inputs about digital transformation in Turkish agriculture. Afterwards, I am willing to share with you our agenda on digital transformation in the Turkish agricultural industry. So just a brief overview of our industries. As Gökhan mentioned, Turkey is one of the top 10 agricultural industries in the world. We roughly produce $62 billion of agricultural output every year, and roughly 15%, 20% of our all output we export. Our major exports are, most of you know, probably tomatoes, hazelnuts, oranges, etc. So, even though we are one of the top 10 agricultural industries or economies, we are having some problems in terms of efficiency, especially in the cereal efficiency. This is a basic comparison between the Turkish wheat yield, average wheat yield. We compare it to EU average and to US average, where USA average is it's roughly 700 kilos per hectare. Our average is less than half of it. So, as Gökhan mentioned again, roughly Turkish agricultural land is 20 million hectares, and 60% of that land we produce cereals like wheat, barley, and maize. And our climate can tolerate both vegetable production and fruit production. There you can, if you go to mid-interim Turkey, to mid-Anatolia, so there are some villages where you can see some wheat farms. Next to them you can see apple orchards. And if you look at these 2 crops in terms of value, so 1 hectare of apple is roughly generates 20 hectares of wheat's value. So the potential of Turkey is in the upcoming 10 years, we have to change our crop portfolio. As I said, we are producing 60% cereals, but we can produce like more veggies. So if we can increase our wheat yield by 15%, only by 15%, we have an excess land of 2 million hectares where we can plant vegetables and fruits, and with those transformations, we can actually achieve, we can more than double our agricultural output. Currently, as I mentioned, like we produce $60 billion worth of agricultural output. In 10 years, maybe in 15 years, we can achieve $150 billion of agricultural output. But not only changing your crop portfolio helps it. In order to be able to change your crop portfolio, first you need to have some structural changes. What are those changes, for example? We have to expand our irrigation infrastructure. Not only expanding irrigation infrastructure is enough, but we have to also transform the irrigation infrastructure into drip irrigation infrastructure, because currently some 30% of Turkish agricultural land can be irrigated. Out of that 30%, 85 to 90% is wild irrigation, which is inefficient. So if you can transform it to a drip irrigation system, with 30% water you can irrigate all the lands. On top of that, we have to consolidate our land. There's one more slide where I am going to show the average land size. So the average farm holding is 6 hectares in Turkey. In order to be able to invest into mechanization or some precision farming practices, we have to increase our farm holding. as I said, some structural changes will correspond to like 30 or 40 billion dollars of additional economy, but the remaining parts will come from the digital transformation. By digital transformation, I mean, for example, take two farms. One of them is producing wheat, the other one is producing apples. There is huge technical gap between these two farms. One of them, assuming like an elementary school graduate and university graduate, producing apples is lots complicated, a lot more complicated than producing wheat. On top of that, you have to have some technical people. For example, agricultural engineers who are educated in producing apples, for example. So therefore, the digital transformation will not only help us guide our farms by data-driven inputs, but also help our technical teams, agricultural engineers, use data to provide know-how and assistance to farmers. So basically, there are some macro, we have consolidated in 5 dimensions the outcomes about the digital transformation. First is the basics, the farmers and farm size. There are 3 million farmers in Turkey, and most of them are really old. They are, the average farmer age is 54, where the Turkey's population average is 28 years old. So not the young generation is adopting farming. So that's a big threat in our agriculture. On the other hand, our agricultural holdings are small. The EU average is 12 hectares. The US average is tenfold, like it's 110 hectares. And this is an average farm holding. And a farm holding consists of 2.2 different fields. So it gets even smaller. So it's a big problem because we don't have some big fields, for example. We have very, very small fields and very fragmented structure. The digital adoption, so as I said, our company provides digital agricultural engineering service to Turkish farmers. We roughly provide our services to 120,000 farmers each year in Turkey. So we run a survey throughout in our farms, but only for a small data set. We asked about smartphone ownership. Only 35% of them has smartphone. We asked about whether they have a Facebook account or not, because social media is the first step in the digital transformation, because you start to exchange information and you subscribe to some technical pages, and you start to get information from internet. On top of that, we also asked whether they are using any internet pages or some smartphone applications to collect weather data or to get some knowledge about their agricultural operations, and that's only 50%. In terms of, so we are going to digital transform our agricultural industry, but first we have to collect data. So how are we going to collect data? First, agricultural sensors. The other ones we can collect from harvesters and the tractors and the other machines. There are 3.5 million individual agricultural fields in all Turkey, but only 1,500 agricultural sensors, private sensors, in the total Turkish market. It's only 0.06% market penetration. So there is huge potential in the agricultural sensors adoption in Turkey. Why it's low penetrated? Because an average station is roughly $5,000 in Turkey, where an average income of a farmer is only $2,000 or $3,000 per year, so they cannot afford it. So what we need there to change the business model, not only sell the sensor stations, but provide service and reduce the sensor prices. On the other hand, the government has an initiative, a consolidated agricultural database, which is called Target in Turkish. They also have like 380 very high-tech stations. Those stations have the multi-spectrum cameras. On top of that, some additional sensors. But their aim is to establish like 1,000 stations. But in 10 years, they reach 380 stations. So the other data will come from the tractors and harvesters. In Turkey, like we have 700,000 tractors. Probably 500,000 of them are operational. We have 12,000 combine harvesters. These combine harvesters harvest wheat, maize, and barley. But only less than 1,000 tractors are digitally enabled. They call it fourth generation tractors, so where you can get the ISOBUS or CAN bus data. The remaining tractors are analog tractors, so you cannot extract data in a cheap way. So we have to change our tractor portfolio as well. When we go to the harvesters, each year Turkey sells roughly 500 to 600 combined harvesters. Many of them are precision farming enabled, but if you want to add these precision farming systems to your harvesters, you have to invest additional $30,000 or $35,000 to the harvesters. And even some players, they invested this thing, nobody collects the data. Only from our understanding, only less than 100 harvesters can do precision mapping. Maybe only 10 or 15 of them are doing mapping. But there are some digital initiatives which are undertaken by the government. The most important one is Target. Target tries to collect data from the field via their stations, but also from satellites. But I mean, in 10 years they only covered only 6 or 7 crops. In Turkey, you can grow 120 different crops, so there is much more room to grow, much more growth to hold. So there is one additional thing: this farm register system is. Each of this, out of 3 million farmers, 2.2 million of them are registered in the farmer registry system. This farmer registry system goes back to 2005. So for 11 years, we have consecutive data on field level, which farmer has planted which crop. But the system lacks information about yield rates on personal level. So they only track what kind of crop they have grown. And there is one good initiative about precision farming, especially for cereals. So it's on the pre-RFP phase. The government is willing to transform at least 2,000 combined harvesters into precision farming, which can do precision mapping harvesters. So basically, that's the outline of the Turkish digital transformation, or the macro insights. And when I also will go into the detail what we are trying to do and briefly sum up our vision. So we are an agricultural technology company with a highly analytical background, and we are trying to combine agricultural know-how with technology. And we are trying to provide to all stakeholders some value-added services where everybody creates value for each other. So, currently we provide 3 levels of services to Turkish market. The lower level is basic information when it's going to about information about government subsidies or some crop prices. But when we go up, it started to get a little bit complex, so we try to localize the information. For example, we have a village-based weather forecast service. For 8,000 different locations, we can provide 3-day weather forecast to Turkish farmers. Roughly like 280,000 Turkish farmers are using our service, but these services are small, smart in the back office, but the delivery mechanism is conventional. We deliver it via SMS because the smartphone penetration is very low in Turkey. And when we go up, we have two different personalized services. First one is the agricultural doctor service, which is a digital agricultural engineering service. The other one is a farm dog service, which provides some feed or health information to animal farms, etc. But we are actually focusing on the crop side, because our company is trying to develop some mathematical formulas about plants' phenological growth. So in AgriDog service, we serve roughly 120 or 130,000 farmers. Each farmer gets correct action on the correct time in a correct way. In order to be able to do that, we are running some simulation, phenological simulation models, which are based on some key accumulation models. I don't know whether you have heard growing day methodology, where, okay, it starts like this. Whenever a farmer becomes our subscriber, we call them and we learn what kind of crop they are growing, in which part of Turkey, specifically which village they are growing, and when they are going to plant this crop. At the plantation date, our system creates a digital farm or digital crop, which is growing by the weather forecast data of that given village. So we accumulate heat. Whenever the heat is accumulated, for example, 250 degrees, we say, okay, your potatoes has to blossom. After blossoming, you have to give these fertilizers in 2 days. Then you have to irrigate this much. Those kind of activities we are providing. So those services are very cheap. The digital agriculture engineering service costs only £1 per month, because we distribute our services via the largest mobile operator in Turkey. So we do not have any huge marketing costs, we do not have any huge distribution costs. On top of that, we don't have any collections, those kind of things. Our vision is, so this is our vision. We are trying to connect each stakeholder between each of them. In the center is lies our phenological simulation model. The phenological simulation model can have several outcomes. First outcome is, for example, for the farmers. What am I going to do in the next growing season, for example? But when you run simulation model on the plant, you can also provide some knowledge or information to agricultural input companies. For example, I'm a salesperson of a seed company, alright? And I am trying to sell corn seeds. Whenever I visit some farms, in the current status, I do not know any farmers. When I go to the village, I start to talk to each of them and try to understand what kind of crop they are growing, when they have planted, and I have to think about what should be in their agenda. But if they enter that field information to our system, the simulation model will be run, then it will come up with a farmer agenda. What happened in the last week? What will happen in the next week? So the smart conversation will pop up into the sales people. Currently we are doing it for two global companies. I don't know whether it's right to mention some names. One of them is Descartes Monsanto's corn company. The other one is Semix Monsanto's sister company. They are producing vegetable seeds. So we are doing it on a manual way, but currently we are working on a smartphone tablet application where we provide this app to do sales, their sales. So this part are the players who are touching the farmers. So we are enabling them to help the farmers to create value. But by enabling them, we will be able to collect data which cannot be collected in a cheap way. So all of these applications serve wanting to create value for the whole system. It's not a zero-sum game. It's they create value for each other. So this is manual part. On the other hand, we also focus on the automated way. So when you grow a crop, you leave trace in three things. One of them is your tractor, the other one is soil, the third one is your plant. Whenever you plant the seeds, you have to go into the field with your seed planter and tractor. So there is a GPS trace. And if it's digital tractor, it tells you, okay, I have a seed planter behind me. I have planted like 100 hectares of land. So whenever you give fertilizer, the soil EC rate goes up, so you can track that. So whenever you spray, the leaves get wet. Basically, as I mentioned, we can simulate the growth of the plant. So imagine you can mark each farmer's activities on that phenological growth rate. So let's say you and I, in 2 minutes I finish, okay? You and I, we grow corn, right? We have fields next to each other. And we harvest at the end of harvest season, for example, you get 2,000 kilogram per hectare. I got 1,000 kilogram per hectare. Everybody knows that you're a better farmer than I am. But nobody can tell the mathematical formula why you are better. If we are going to, we are going to track the farmers and we are going to consolidate this data in tens or hundreds of thousands. And we will be addressing the mathematical formula of the success. And when you apply machine learning algorithms to this data, for example, again, you are the best farmer in the current status, but when you apply machine learning algorithms, for example, one can achieve 2,500 kilograms per hectare. With that methodology, we are aiming to do that. And so currently, we are providing some conventional services to the Turkish market. In 2 months, we are digitalizing our services. We are going to launch some IoT products next year. And in 2019, we will transform our services on big data-based digital services. So we will tell the farmer on data-driven actions. Those are things. I have other slides, but currently this is our vision, and that's where we are heading. And we have started to do this in Turkey.